New Voice to Parliament polling showing yes behind in every state as the PM confirms he'll announce a referendum date in a couple of weeks. Victorian MP Will Fowles facing calls to quit Parliament after resigning from the Parliamentary Labor Party following allegations of a serious assault. Donald Trump returns to election campaigning after his third indictment in 4 months, while other Republicans remain split. And in sport, Collingwood star Nick Dacos out for 6 weeks as the fallout continues from the Pie shock 32-point loss to Hawthorn at the MCG. Good evening. We begin with the latest polling on the Indigenous Voice to Parliament, with data published today showing that yes is now behind in every single state. In New South Wales, no is ahead 56-44, in Victoria 55-45, and in Queensland 63-37 when voters were only given those two options. Today, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese confirming we should have a date for the referendum in a couple of weeks, with September and December already ruled out. For the latest, let's bring in National Affairs Editor Austin Pollock. Austin, the PM has continued to talk up the voice at the Garma Festival despite these polling woes.
Yeah, evening Leo, that's right. There is still not a date for the referendum. However, the PM saying there will be no delay to the referendum for the Voice to Parliament. Albanese delivering a passionate address at the Garma Festival in Arnhem Land in the Northern Territory. This morning, he told ABC's Insiders he will not back down from supporting the Voice to Parliament because that was a specific request First Nations people made in the Uluru Statement. He has continued to urge Aussies to get behind the Voice at a time where recent polling shows slipping support for the Yes campaign. Now, at the Garma Festival, Albanese received a very warm welcome from Indigenous leaders there. Here is some of what he had to say yesterday.
A vehicle for real and practical progress. A committee of Indigenous Australians, chosen by Indigenous Australians, to work for Indigenous Australians in every part of our nation. At this year's referendum, we have the opportunity to recognise and celebrate this culture and connection in our Constitution. On referendum day, the power to reach for a better Australia is in our hands. Let's seize it together. Let's vote yes for recognition. Let's vote yes for a voice. And let's vote yes for the better future that both will deliver for all of us.
Leo, the focus now continues on recent polling that is showing continuing decline in support for the Yes campaign. A poll conducted by Redbridge for News Corp papers shows that the no vote is now ahead on 56% compared to 44% nationally. The poll also found that after hearing the yes and no campaigns, 1 in 4 people who previously said that they were considering supporting the yes vote now switched to no. Now, generally, Aussies believe the no campaign is performing better also. 28% think that it is rating and communicating very well, compared to that of 17% for the yes campaign. I spoke to the director at Redbridge, Tony Barry, a little earlier. Tony Barry, thank you very much for your time. Can you take us through what the results have found?
What it shows is there's a very big soft vote for the Yes campaign. They've got a 44% support, but about 22% of that is soft, or what we describe as soft, which is where they self-report as potentially changing their mind between now and the election. The no vote sits at 56%, but 37% of that 56 points is a hard vote. So they don't expect to change their mind at all. So what that means is they've got a very strong base, the no campaign, whereas the yes vote is very soft.
And why do you think it has gone so wrong for the yes campaign? Do you think they have time to actually rectify it before the vote happens?
Well, the intuitive choice is mid-October for the referendum, so they've actually got plenty of time, and more importantly, they've got plenty of money. They've got a reported $50 million campaign war chest, and that gives you massive repetition and reach. So it can be turned around, but at the moment, the campaign is drifting because it doesn't have a compelling and coherent message. And what we're finding is there's a very when we in the poll that we did, we asked them to respond to the questions about from the pamphlet, the cases for yes and the cases for no. There were 8 arguments for the yes vote and 10 for the no vote. And what we found was the messages around the yes weren't particularly compelling or persuasive, with 26% nominating other. For the no case, most of the voting coalesced around the two arguments of don't know the detail and it's divisive. In fact, I think it was 51% total. So they're driving a lot of that vote towards no, and particularly that undecided or soft vote. So what they need to do is get into that soft vote cohort and put them back onto their own pile. But there's plenty of time to do it. There's plenty of time.
All right, Tony Barry from Redbridge there. So, Leo, it certainly looks like a long fight ahead for Albanese and The Voice, with no date for the referendum and a struggling Yes campaign. The government, no doubt, looking for some new tactics ahead of a promised referendum later this year. The Gama Festival of Culture wraps up tomorrow. Leo?
Austin, thank you. Country Liberal Party Senator Jacinta Price has hit out at claims that the No campaign is using AI images of Indigenous people. Speaking on the ABC's Insiders program, NITV host John Paul Jank claimed that those on the No campaign had created fake images to try to look like an Indigenous person was supporting their cause.
You know, online, the No campaign have multiple social media pages. Some of them now are using AI with a black Indigenous character to try and look like it's an Indigenous person supporting the No campaign.
Crikey.
Yes.
Sorry, did you say that was from the No campaign or from some random?
No, from the No campaign. And they're supporting, obviously, different voices, and they're under the guise of moderate voices against The Voice, like it's Australians for Unity. But they're using AI of a black character that is supporting the No case.
Senator Price responding on Twitter saying, quote, "Of all the racist, offensive, inaccurate things that have been said about the No campaign, this is probably the worst. A complete and utter lie." Price has served as the Coalition's Indigenous Australian spokesperson for the past several months. Victorian MP Will Fowles has resigned from the Parliamentary Labor Party following allegations of a serious assault. Premier Dan Andrews says his office has now referred the matter to Victoria Police, while Fowles has himself released a statement saying there was no assault. He currently remains in Parliament as the member for Ringwood, now sitting as an independent Labor MP. National reporter Lyndon Holmes has more.
Victorian Labor MP Will Fowles has resigned from the Parliamentary Party following allegations of assault. In a statement from the Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews released late last night, it says late on Thursday afternoon the state government was advised of an alleged incident that occurred during last week. The Premier's office then made further inquiries on Friday and Saturday and has now received information from a government employee about an alleged serious assault by Fowles. Leo, last night the matter was referred on to Victoria Police, but they say no official complaints have yet been made. This afternoon we received a statement from Fowles which in part reads, "I was shocked and distressed to learn an allegation of assault was levelled against me." He says there was no assault and he only expects to be out of the Parliamentary Labor Party temporarily, and he has confirmed he remains a member of the ALP. At this point, Fowles is still in Parliament as a member for Ringwood in the lower house, now sitting as an independent Labor MP.
This matter has been handled very quickly, thoroughly, properly, and based on the information that I have, it was no longer acceptable to me that Mr Fowles would remain a member of the Parliamentary Labor Party. I sought and received his resignation, and I will leave it to him to make any statements he chooses to make. That is a matter for him, but this matter is now with Victoria Police because my office referred it there, and I would let you speak to them if they choose to comment, but I will be very careful in what I say because that's the appropriate way to go.
Leo, today there was calls for Fowles to quit Parliament. In the event he did quit, there would then be a by-election in his electorate. That would then be the second by-election in the state of Victoria in just a few months.
Residents in southern WA have been awoken by an earthquake. The magnitude 5 quake hit the Great Southern region of the state around 5:30am local time this morning. Initial reports listing it as a 5.6, though that was later downgraded. Authorities say there was only minor damage with no injuries reported. The quake was felt as far away as Perth and Kalgoorlie. The ACT's top prosecutor has resigned after findings of the inquiry into the handling of the prosecution of Bruce Lehrmann were released. Director of Public Prosecutions Shane Drumgold advised the Territory's Attorney General Shane Rattenbury on Friday that he would vacate his position a day after the pair met and agreed his position was no longer tenable. It was announced this morning. Bruce Lehrmann was tried by the ACT Supreme Court last year after allegations from former Liberal staffer Brittany Higgins that he raped her in Parliament House back in 2019. A mistrial was declared as a result of juror misconduct, and charges later dropped. 3 people are dead as a result of suspected mushroom poisoning in South Gippsland. 2 men and 2 women became ill after eating lunch together in their house in Leonardo in Victoria in late July. The 2 women, aged 66 and 70, died in hospital on Friday, and a 70-year-old man also died in hospital last night, while a 68-year-old man is in a critical condition. A search warrant at a Leonardo residence was conducted yesterday with an investigation surrounding the exact circumstances of what happened remaining ongoing. Victorians are advised not to pick or eat wild mushrooms unless they are an expert. Elon Musk says X, formerly known as Twitter, will fund the legal bills of users who have been unfairly treated by their employers for posting or liking something. Musk tweeted that, quote, "If you were unfairly treated by your employer due to posting or liking something on this platform, we will fund your legal bill. No limit. Please let us know." Twitter's name change happened several days ago, the site rebranding to X, but the main name still remains twitter.com, as well as much of the terminology on the site. Donald Trump has returned to election campaigning after his 3rd indictment in just 4 months. It comes as other Republicans in the wide field of 2024 presidential candidates remain split over his actions on January 6, 2021, when many of his supporters stormed the US Capitol. North American correspondent Wyatt Sharp has more.
There are some of the Republican candidates who have come out and who have criticized Donald Trump. You mentioned Asa Hutchinson. He told me in the interview that I did with him today that he believes Donald Trump needs to be accountable for, as he told me, quote, sending everybody to the Capitol. Of course, referencing his supporters, Hutchinson told me he believes Trump needs to be held accountable and that he doesn't believe Trump has been held accountable to an adequate standard at this point in time. You also mentioned Chris Christie. The common denominator, though, in this part of the story is that all of these candidates who have come out and who have criticized Donald Trump, there's also a former Republican Congressman Will Hurd as an example, they have all been polling at less than 2% in most cases. The 2% example is the former New Jersey governor, Chris Christie, who very much many people feel represents more of the 2012 base of the Republican Party as a side to the present day 2023 base of the Republican Party. I've connected with people from several of the campaigns. I was speaking earlier today with people from the Never Back Down PAC. That's the super PAC that has endorsed Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. I was speaking to several of the candidates themselves. The Trump campaign, though, seems to be the most reluctant to come out and actually admit that this could potentially hurt them in a negative sense, because everyone is quick to point out that the fundraising numbers, the polling numbers, that they are looking more and more positive for Donald Trump the more this goes on. But there's a lot of people who just aren't buying the polls and who aren't buying those fundraising numbers. I think I told you this last time. There's someone I know quite well, Brian Karam, who works at the White House. He writes a column very regularly. He tells me on, almost a weekly basis whenever we talk that he believes that there's no way that this is actually going to help Donald Trump in a positive way. And I mean, that would be logical to assume. Anytime someone does things, whether it's the Jean Carroll situation, whether it's the hush money situation, I mean, these are serious things that in most normal circumstances would have negative consequences. But it would appear the Trump campaign repeatedly makes it out as if Donald Trump is in some way the victim of this situation. And as a result of that, gets more and more money in terms of fundraising from his existing supporters. And in some cases has supporters from the other campaigns think that they need to get behind him because he is the presumptive front runner in the GOP campaign for the presidency. So certainly, I mean, we will see, but as of right now, it doesn't appear, at least, as if any of the other candidates will be backing away from him at any time. You mentioned possible prison time for him. That's obviously a very big if, whether or not he would receive a sentence. And obviously, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves at this point in time. There are a couple of people that we're talking all throughout the day that, the person who would ultimately decide how long a sentence could be for former President Trump has been known to give harsh sentences to some of the January 6th rioters, which many people, there's people who you talk to who denied this, but it is partially the truth, according to many, that Donald Trump's rhetoric surrounding the 2020 election is what led to the January 6th insurrection. That's obviously denied by his campaign and by people that I talk with. I mentioned Larry Elder, who I talked with earlier. It's denied by people like him, but that is certainly something that is true to many people. Again, that Donald Trump could have potentially helped incite the January 6th riot based off of some of the claims he was making in regards to the 2020 campaign. Mike Pence's former chief of staff, Mark Short, who now serves as a senior advisor on the Pence campaign, gave several interviews over the course of today. And one of the interviews that he gave, he mentioned that even on January 6th, after that very dramatic story that the Pence campaign and that Mike Pence himself has previously told on January 6th, where he went to the loading dock of the Capitol to hide and to protect himself from these January 6th rioters who were, in essence, looking for him. Mark Short said even after that day, when Donald Trump beforehand and throughout the day was telling his supporters that Mike Pence had some sort of an authority to send these votes back to the states, as Donald Trump described it, something he had no power to do. But even after that, Mark Short said in a couple of interviews today that he went back to his office at the White House despite many reports that his credentials had been taken away. So that perhaps says a little bit, to me at least, about the relationship between Pence and Trump, at least before this campaign got started, perhaps not being as bad as it is being demonstrated in the public eye. But in terms of whether or not Mike Pence has a chance of winning the presidency, certainly there are a lot of pundits who are jumping to conclusions about when he could drop out of the race. That was the conversation on CNN, on the cable news network today. And so, the chances that he could be successful, there was one poll even that showed many people ahead of him. There was one poll that showed Nikki Haley ahead of him and Vivek Ramaswamy ahead of him, two people who have less experience than him, when usually a former vice president, you saw Joe Biden, he was the former vice president, is pretty often the one who can surge to the nomination, but not looking like that will be the case with Mike Pence.
Right to sport now, and the Matildas are getting ready for their must-win clash against Denmark. For more, let's bring in senior reporter Darby Travers. Darby, a big name is set to return.
Leo, some good news tonight. Sam Kerr confirming she will be playing in tomorrow night's must-win clash. When Australia take on Denmark, Kerr did sustain a calf injury during training the day before the Matildas' opening game against Ireland, and was only on the bench in the most recent game against Canada. Denmark is coming into this game after a 2-0 win, while the Matildas won 4-0 on Monday. Meanwhile, in the AFL, Collingwood star Nick Dacos is reportedly in doubt for Friday night's blockbuster game against Geelong after he sustained a knock to his knee against Hawthorn yesterday. The Hawks stunned the footy world with a 32-point win at the MCG. Dacos was injured in a heavy collision and has been sent for scans, while Nathan Murphy could be out until the final series with his own injury. The Pies sit firmly at the top of the ladder with only a few games remaining. And just sticking with the footy, the Sydney Swans have started life without superstar Buddy Franklin, defeating rivals GWS by 11 points and ending the Giants' winning streak. The Swans are now only just outside the top 8, while the Giants sat 7th after the results. The final score 15-6-96 to 12-13-85. And Leo, that is the latest in sport tonight. For more updates, head over to our YouTube channel, search 6NewsAU to find us.
Right, Darby, thank you. And now here's Ivan Melly in Perth with what's making news right now on WAMN News.
Thanks, Leo. Tonight on WAMN News, an influential No campaign advocate prepares to land in Perth to consolidate support against the Voice to Parliament. An exclusive interview coming up.
Don't forget the homeless. National Homelessness Week to raise awareness for the disadvantaged as calls for a rental freeze continue.
Major policy backflip for the state government as the land heritage laws deeply angered WA farmers.
And has the Royal Show lost its way? Our feature interview on the future of the beloved annual festival. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. Join us tonight on the WAMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Alright, a reminder of the top stories we are following on 6 News this hour. A new polling on the Indigenous Voice to Parliament shows yes is now behind in every single state. In New South Wales, no ahead 56-44, and Victoria 55-45, and Queensland 63-37. Today, Anthony Albanese confirming we should have a date for the referendum in a couple of weeks. September and December already ruled out. And Victorian MP Will Fowles has resigned from the Parliamentary Labor Party after allegations of a serious assault. Premier Dan Andrews says his office has referred the matter to Victoria Police, while Fowles has himself released a statement saying there was no assault. And that is 6 News for this hour. There is more news 24/7 on our website, SIXNewsAU.com, and on social media. Just search 6NewsAU to find us. More news coverage continues right after this. For now though, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.